Sateesh, thanks so much for doing this. I just wanted to begin with, your backstory. What's your backstory and what brought you into this specific career path?
Good morning, Ketaki. Thanks for having me on the show. What I do currently is I run a venture capital fund. We invest in early stage startups, especially startups that are focusing on building products. My own journey, I used to be a professional table tennis player. I've won several state championships and I've played nationals. And in my 12th grade, I thought I would play table tennis for the rest of my life. Father kind of educated me and said, hey, you know what? Your sporting career will only last till you're 20, 25. And India is not well known to be doing well, right, in the table tennis arena. I went back, thought about it, made my own decision. He didn't force me into engineering school. When I graduated, I decided to go for my master's, pursue engineering. I even had an admission in PhD. I kind of dropped out and moved to Valley. And in the Valley, worked for fairly large corporations. And when you live in the Valley, startup bug kind of bites you. So 7, 8, 10 years, you want to go and do a startup. And I also wanted to move from more engineering to marketing. Because what piqued my curiosity was, as an engineer, you're very biased. You think that you're designing the best product in the world, but does customer care about it? Does customer appreciate it? And then what does competition have to offer? So the confluence of these is where really companies are built. I moved into marketing because that gives you an opportunity to go talk to customers and understand competition. I went and joined a startup called T-Square. In 2 years, we were acquired. And after that, I started making investments. I was clueless. I was making angel investments.
Yeah.
I used to just follow my mentors. But then I soon realized that was not my cup of tea. I, then started a company called Euclid. I was the founder CEO, raised around $40 million in the Bay Area, built the company and did learn about entrepreneurship, did many, many great things, but also committed a few mistakes as an entrepreneur. And then we sold the company. That's when I realized that, hey, now I want to move to the other side of the table.
Right.
And work with entrepreneurs and support entrepreneurs. And I understood what entrepreneurs need outside of capital, in their journey, right, to build companies. And that's when I joined DFJ. DFJ is a very, very well-known global venture capital fund. I spent 5 years with them. Then I decided that I want to pursue my own dream. And that dream was obviously to create a platform for product startups.
Fantastic. That sounds really exciting. I'm curious, can you take us back to the time when you were on the brink of failure and it was all dark and gloomy? Can you share a story of those times? And also you can elaborate on what helped you bounce back.
The brink of failure was more, I think, to do with, my mindset. I think to me, the wake-up call was, I remember, I had excruciating body pains. So I went and saw my physician. And, when my physician, started talking, he was an Eastern European settled in Silicon Valley. Fabulous guy. I think outside of a great medical doctor, he's someone who would give you a hug and then make you comfortable and, start talking so that you open up, right? So he kind of wired me up and, he said, look, everything looks good, but you need to change your lifestyle. And he knew, right, my journey because I used to share with him whenever I used to meet with him. Then I just didn't understand. I said, look, I'm a vegetarian, I don't smoke, I rarely drink a glass of wine, I work out. What else do you want me to do? What is it that I can change?
Yeah.
He said that, what, you need to relax and you need to spend more time outside of work. Then he started asking me, how did your board meeting go and what was your team meeting? I just realized that the more questions he asked me, I obviously had stored, so many emotions and I did cry. And he said, it's okay to cry. You don't need to feel shy or you don't need to think you're vulnerable, right? To show your vulnerability. So I cried, I think, for like 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And then I felt so relieved. Then I started thinking about it seriously. I think my younger brother, had a huge role to play as well. He had attended Sri Ravi Shankar's talk, Art of Living. in the Bay Area, and he said, "Look, I really enjoyed listening to this guru. I think he's very relevant, and here is a book." Then when I went back in Bay Area, there was an invitation. Again, this is serendipity. They invited like 100 CEOs in the Bay Area, to go and be part of a meditation session and listen to what Sri Ravi Shankar would talk about. Then that kind of piqued my curiosity, and I did this whole spiritual shopping, from Art of Living to Eckhart Tolle to Muzi to Sri Sadguru. I kind of read so much, about all these folks, and I did all kinds of practices. But in the end, now I have a concoction of my own, and I follow that, and I feel just so happy and blissful. Today, a lot of people think that health is what we care about. Of course, we eat well and we exercise and all that.
Right.
But the overall health game has a bunch of other components as well. Body health is just one component.
Right.
The other component is mind health, which is so important, right? I mean, during this pandemic times.
Right.
And the third very important component is financial health.
Right.
And we all know that financial wellness has impact on mind, which in turn has an impact on body, right?
Yeah.
Then the fourth piece is really relationships health. And then the fifth piece is really purpose of life. What do you wake up getting excited about? And when I list them, I don't mean to say that they're in that order, they're stacked in that order, but the confluence of them obviously create, right, that final index. Depends, what percentages for each human being, but all of these are very essential. And you wrap all of this around, of course, love and gratitude and service. I think a lot of us, who are very well educated, who are very algorithmic driven, say, hey, it's all about numbers and logic and reasoning, but there's more to it.
That's amazing. So on that note, so you talked about meditation, and you talked about, the various schools of thought that you read about. Now, culturally, we are familiar with yoga and meditation, but for most of us, when you actually talk about the practice of meditation, for a layman, it's like sitting still for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, without talking, without moving. And most practitioners, picture meditation as something that probably they don't need. Now, how can anyone and everyone incorporate meditation into their lives, and how do you think that will benefit them?
I think it is going to be different for each person, right? Their experience is going to be very different because each person's nature is very different. How they react to certain situations is very different. Right. Some people don't need it because their personalities are as such that they don't store, these emotions. See, what ends up happening is that you come across many events that create huge impressions, or events that do not even get registered in your mind. For example, let's say you won a particular award. That may be an impression that's stored in your mind. Every time you think about it, you feel happy about it, right? Yeah. Or it could be somebody saw a very, very ghastly accident or fire, right? That also gets imprinted, right, in their kind of subconscious. So those impressions get connected to emotions. And that's when you start thinking about, oh, it was a happy moment. No, this was a very sad moment. And because of that emotion, you develop certain feelings in your body. And those feelings in turn kind of really affect your breath. And we're not cognizant of this because we're just, recording so much of data, right? Brain is more powerful than supercomputer. Anybody who tells you that, oh, you got to just sit quietly, you got to sit still and you got to give it 20 minutes and then you're meditated. That's not true. People who know meditation tell you, sit there, lie down, doesn't matter, walk, listen to music. You find an activity that allows you to relax, that you love, and keep breathing. I think you need to be aware when you're breathing, both your inhalation and exhalation. Let any number of thoughts come in and let them kind of take you in all directions. It does not matter. Keep thinking. But you will enter a phase when all of those will die down. And if you're patient enough, when those thoughts kind of die down, the thing that happens is that your body, mind, and breath they are together. When those are together, you're letting go. A lot of these subconscious and unconscious stuff gets released. Of course, people who practice it could be in that state for a very, very, very long period. But for many people like me, I think your meditative state, while the process is 30 minutes, the state itself could be a minute or two. And to me, all creative artists can only perform when they enter that meditative state. I look at sport, I look at Michael Jordan hitting a three-pointer from half court, Sergey Bubka's, pole vault. You look at Sachin Tendulkar. I mean, I was watching one of Virat Kohli's video. He says that, in a 100,000 people stadium, all he's seeing is one arm coming at him and bowling. He's not seeing the 100,000 people in the stadium. He does not even see the 11 players on the opposite side. That is meditative state. A.R. Rahman, I'm sure when he's performing, is in a meditative state. So to me, I think the brilliant code is written. A neurosurgeon performs the most complex surgery in a meditative state, which is his body, mind, and breath together. Since they're so focused, the output is 110%. It's not 100%, right? So you kind of move into a zone of passion, and in that zone of passion, you tend to perform more than 100%. And so when you enter that kind of meditative state, it's a deep reset. And when that deep reset happens, you're able to process so much more information and you're able to be more attentive, right? And it does world of good.
Very interesting. So on a different note now, while growing up, we put so much emphasis on IQ. Teachers talk about IQ, they appreciate it and it's celebrated. But we never talk about EQ. Now, what is emotional intelligence? Why is it important to have EQ?
I think EQ complements IQ, right? I mean, you need both of them. I think what you are really looking at is being a complete human being, right? And it all depends on the role that you play. I mean, if you're going to be a corporate leader, a politician, being part of a government, public servant, you could be a scientist. What it basically means is, in a very, very simple parlance, understanding the self and understanding people around you and having that empathy, ability to, understand that role play. So when you observe your own emotions, there's awareness. And then after you are aware, there's acknowledgement. And when there's acknowledgement, action begins. Otherwise, what ends up happening is many a times, right, we are all in a state of reaction. We're not in a state of action. A state of reaction happens when you are in a denial mode. So you're not accepting that. So let's take, I'm a 12th grader, now I'm applying to an Ivy League school. I've worked so hard. My IQ is really good. I scored really well in SATs and ACTs, and I've got all the extracurriculars. And now I've applied, I've written great essays. But you also need to realize that there are just so many more good students out there in the world, and they're going to apply. And if you don't make it, it's not that you've lost, right? Yes, a particular school has many, many constraints. They need to balance their ecosystem. The number of students from different countries. Big schools are really like managing a city. Now, you didn't get it. If you're in a state of denial, you're going to curse yourself, or you're going to curse the school, right? You're going to curse the system, saying that I did so well. I think the school is biased, right. Or I could have done this better, in my IB or CBSE, or I could have done another extracurricular activities, one more internship. But when you paid attention in terms of how this process happens, and you acknowledge that, you were up against a lot of competition, and there are certain constraints on folks who are making these decisions,
True.
And the decision did not go in your favor, and now you start acting. So you're not reacting anymore, right? The reaction mode would be, I'm never going to study, the world is not fair, why did I not get this, right? But in a mode of action, you look at what are the best next opportunities, or what do I do to impress the same school, maybe to come back to me next year. And this is applicable everywhere. In today's time and age, you have family, you have school, you have society, at least for young children. For grown-ups like us, you've got your family, you've got your professional work environment where you spend 16 hours.
Right.
or 12 hours and think about work 4 more hours, which is 75% of your active life. And then, the society. None of these places are able to teach you or ingrain that knowledge depth unless you reflect on your own. We're always acting. Often, action supersedes reflection in all our lives. We have no time to reflect. We're only acting from the time, we wake up in the morning. When I say acting, I'm not saying pretending. I'm saying working on something. There's a task after the task after another task. And then, you're done for the day, but you've not thought about it as to what does this mean, right? To me, I think irrespective of which role, whether you're a mother, whether you're a corporate leader, whether you're a coach, whether you're a student, developing that EQ is extremely important. And to do that, I think you need to look at all of these. You need to go play sport. I keep telling kids, we all live in homogeneous societies, but the world is not homogeneous. I mean, if you live in a gated community, the world is not that. You get out and go out there and see, it's very different. Yeah. And we are not willing to accept that reality. One of my best friends and who I even consider like a mentor, Phil Gopich, an Indian badminton coach, we talk about this, right? You go run 400 meters as a child. Let's say you run 400 meters in less than 1 minute. I think the race from 300 to 400 meters will tell us if you can endure the pain. Are you going to get to the finish line or are you going to give up? Because the 300 to 400 meters, that 100 meters is going to be a marathon for you. It's not a sprint anymore. The second thing is when the child from possibly a low-income neighborhood wins the race against you, then you get to see why that child is so much more better than you. You not have the same background. So that's when you learn life. You need to experience the world through multiple lenses. That's why a lot of travel, internships. When you go to ashrams in the old days, I think the entry to the ashram was first you had to go beg in the streets. And there was a reason for that. So that lets you kind of kill your ego before you enter the ashram. So very clearly there is a process, and the more schools teach this process, that's fantastic. Or you got to teach this, ingrain this within your family or society, right? You are obviously an output of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So it's very important, to develop EQ.
That's great. So on the point that you mentioned about sports, now how do you draw parallels between sports and entrepreneurship?
I think there are many similarities, right? So in sport, say you're working hard, it's World Championship or World Cup final, you make some quick decisions. You make real-time decisions. Someone gets promoted up in the batting order, or somebody gets demoted, or someone else gets to bowl who has never bowled. These are real-time decisions that you're making. Entrepreneurs have to make many of these real-time decisions, right, while running the companies. Simulating, warfare is very different from fighting the warfare. When you go out there, it's very different. So that's one part. The second thing is taking risk. All of a sudden, you hit a shot, Roger Federer versus Rafael Nadal, you've been serving a particular style throughout the match, the 5th set, Wimbledon, US Open, Australian, whatever, you got to do something very different that the opponent of yours is not expecting. Same thing in entrepreneurship, risk-taking capability is a must. Competition. In sport, there's tremendous amount of competition. Right. Same thing, in startup, in the entrepreneurial world, there's tremendous amount of competition. Team spirit. Again, if you play a team sport, not an individual sport, you have to play together, right? The weak link is the long pole in the tent. I often say this, the relay race is won by not an individual runner who runs brilliantly, but someone who runs their leg really fast, but also exchanges the baton very smoothly, because you may lose few seconds in that exchange. Entrepreneurship is same. It's not enough if you work alone. You got to carry the team along and they need to run as much with you. And then recovering from the defeat. You feel like it's the end of the world. You prepared for 2 years, let's say, to go play Olympics or World Championship. And then you go there and you have fever, or, your stomach is upset, or you had a bad day and then you lost the game. 4 years of preparation, 18 hours a day, all gone, right? And you feel so low at that moment and you say, what am I doing with my life? Should I kind of give up? Why should I even do this? Same thing in entrepreneurship. I mean, you have great moments. You wake up saying you're on the top of the world. One day you wake up saying that, oh my God, I'm going nowhere. Where am I heading? So all of these, in terms of real-time decision making, risk-taking abilities, respecting competition, acknowledging competition, team spirit, and then pulling back yourself from adversity, they all happen. So that's why I think that there are great parallels between both.